Hi.
Good morning, my love. How are you?
Well, good evening from London.
Good
I
evening.
am fine.
I have a question in terms of what it is that you do. And Charisse, you're gonna pop in there, but I said, let me make sure at least I ask this before I forget, because the you did how many characters in our book that you created that I did not, in the writing of it, I don't have a particular sound to their voices or any of that. You created characters that took me away. I wrote them.
Yeah.
Um, so I was wondering how you came to settle on, for instance, one of my favorite characters that you do, frankly, is Lady Schwellenberg.
Oh,
And
Lady
I said,
Sandberg. Yeah.
yes.
Well, my mum's youngest brother's wife is Austrian, and she was a ski champion when she was younger. And I don't know. I suppose I see the person, and then I just so I poured a bit of Liesel into Lady Schwellenberg, and I studied German A level. My godmother's German. I spent a lot of time in Germany, so I like the country very much, and I really love Liesel. She's fantastic. She was an Austrian ski champion. She had three kids. She married my uncle, who was a British. He was a British Lion, which is an English rugby player. So they're very sporty as a family, and there's just something about doing the domestic things. I don't know. I just always think of Lady Schwellenberg as she's doing these things and she's very loyal, but there's a little bit of her that's it's somewhere else doing something.
But
And
it was amazing to hear her through your interpretation.
yeah,
I loved it. It was what you did with Willem. It was what you did with Lena.
yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah. In fact, God knows that if I'm lucky enough, I would love for you to do Lena. I would love for you to be. It's such a fabulous character. You did her in such a fabulous way. Anyway, I had to ask it because you would go back and forth between these characters within the lines, and I said I would be, I'd be crazed.
But that's what I think. When you're doing an audiobook, you have to have that ability to. It's almost like you're channeling. They're all the scene, the characters, everybody's in your head. You open your mouth, and the narrator comes out, and then with the narrator is the next person who's in the scene, and the next person. And you have to be able to sort of channel them all at the same time, and let them be having I think it's a bit like the conversations that we all have in our heads when we're going, oh, for goodness sake, get a grip. I am getting grip. No, you're not. What are you doing that thing again? No one. That thing that we all do. Everybody does it naturally. I think it's kind of the same thing, but you just channel it into, the writer's vision on the page, and you put that through instead.
Well, it was. I thought it was a lovely marriage of the words and the characters that you created. And so I personally, I have to thank you because I had a new experience with my own work through
Yeah.
you. So
I,
thank
yeah.
you so
Oh,
much for that.
well, thank you. I always think it's the thing that I love most about this work really is that, you know, you had you have the idea, and then you create your thing, and then I have some ideas and I bring them to the thing that you've created, and then it becomes its own third thing, which is its own existence in a way. And I love the magic of that really.
It was a very different experience for me because I've seen this work in a few incarnations now. I did the play in Los Angeles and I did it as a full out. It was sort of an extended one act in Los Angeles, and then we did a full on production in New York. So then
Wow.
to see Charlotte come alive, and it's the Elena putting on the white makeup, standing on stage, and everyone was frozen in the background when she and Bach start dance, she and Christian danced together, and it was, the falling in love sequence. And also what happened with the molestation, which ended act one, it was, so I've seen it, done in that way. But this is another incredible experience because you're still using your imagination because we're hearing it, So I said, I'm very lucky to have had people interpret the work so well that it surprises even me, goes beyond my expectation. Yeah, it was a different, fabulous experience. And I have friends who have read the book, who bought the audiobook, and I have friends who know their languages and all of that, and they said, boy, she really nailed the Portuguese and the German and all of that. People are very excited about this work. So again, I can't thank you enough because it appears to be resonating.
Great.
Can I ask you two, how did you guys come together to do this collaboration? I mean, Adjoa, how did you find the book, and how did you agree to become the narrator and the voices of the characters?
Let me answer that first, because she came after they gave me, books gave me the ability to choose who was going to narrate. And I remember the thing I kept asking was that it's got to be a very aristocratic British accent. She's this woman is storied. She's a royal. It couldn't be someone who was going to come in and do sort of a Cockney accent. And by the way, I'd been sent some tapes, and a lot of that voicing was not as royal as I wanted certainly for Charlotte. And they sent a group of names that were alphabetical, and who's at the top of the list with the last name Andoh. And I said, I swear to God, as dramatic as I am, I said, stop. That's the choice. That's it. Because I didn't want to hear anything else. I just said, this is because of what Adjoa brings. Adjoa brings a theatrical. She's all, I'm paying you a compliment now. This is a stage actress. She's a director. We've seen her on television, but the theater that she brings to everything that she does, I said, oh my God, this will be an experience. I had no idea what the experience was going to be, but I knew it was going to be an experience. So I'm on pins and needles. I'm here. I'm going, God, if I never ask you anything else, please let her say yes. Please let her say. So now, Adjoa, you go, because I'm saying I'm sitting here waiting for the yes.
First of all, that's hilarious. Usually, Adjoa Andoh means first in to see the dentist at school, sitting at the front of the class in exams, all of that sort of stuff. So hooray. I've been doing audiobooks since the 80s. So I get asked to do a lot, and they take a lot of they take a lot of work. I'm very fussy about work. I think maybe it's the directory control freak, but I don't like listening to bad work. And my husband's a writer, my father was a journalist, I write. It takes a lot. A book takes a lot of work, and I think if you're going to do an audio version, you're being handed over somebody's baby, and it's your duty to honor the work. And with a character like Charlotte Sophia, one of the things that I'm really interested in all the work that I do is stories are the way we navigate the world. So, when our story, I'm talking about Black people here, when our stories have not been told and we get an opportunity to tell them, then it's on me to make sure I do the best job I can of telling the story. And so I get sent all sorts of audiobooks. They're not just they're not necessarily ones that require me to. I've just been reading a Nancy Mitford book, so it's not just about oh, you're Black, can you do this book? But when it has a particular resonance, and obviously doing Bridgerton at the moment, I knew about Queen Charlotte already. Just my mum's a historian and I'm interested. But the detail of the work that Tina's done on this book, I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to honor Charlotte and honor Tina and honor, you know, all of us who should know these stories. So when, you know, the fascists and the right wingers say, go back where you came from, I can go, okay, well, have a read of this. Because I think one of the problems, I think this is the same in the States, it's probably the same all over the world, is we don't get taught all the history.
That's right.
We get taught. I mean, kids at school in this country that learn about the Nazis and Henry VIII. That's kind of it. There's no joining up. There's no connection, and they don't even do that stuff in detail. Nobody talks about, you know, the number of black people, gay people, disabled people, Romani people, who were murdered by the Nazis as well. You know, we don't get the full picture. So I think people's prejudices and opinions get molded by the stories they're told about who was where and what happened to whom and all that sort of stuff. So what this book does is it adds to the sum of knowledge from which people can have more informed and authentic opinions about the world. So so I was really delighted to do it, and but having said yes, then it's like, so don't mess up. Do your homework. Do it
Well, you
properly.
did not, my dear. You did not. It
Well,
was,
thank you.
and Charisse knows this, it was has been rather a 20-year journey for me. It was
Wow.
supposed to have been the follow-up to my Sally Hemings, Thomas Jefferson story. And
Okay.
because same time period, in fact, in fact, Charlotte was queen, and we here in America, and we're just coming out of 4th of July, we were separating from Britain, and so
Yeah.
the two stories were actually, I said, what a beautiful follow-up it could be to that story. And if not for my father having a book in his library that had a picture of this, a rendering of this Black woman, and it said England's first Black queen, and me being such a history buff, and I said, wait, why do we not know that? Like we know that her husband went mad. I mean, everybody,
Yeah.
if you know nothing about George III, you know that he went crazy. But why do we not know that he was married to a woman of color, and not just the one strand of Blackness that comes down from Madragana Ben Bekar, but 6 lines of ethnic descent coming down those 15 generations to her.
Yep.
So this was not going to be an easy task. So it was all the trips to London and the back and forth. And my God, the guy at the British, I fell in love with the guy at the British Library who would send me pictures. So he'd say, her foot was very small, Tina, and send me pictures. It must have been as 4.5 or 5. It was, she had a very small, I'm being sent things. People helped once they knew I was doing this story.
Yeah.
So then you got to get the events, and then you got to figure out how to turn that into a story. I tell people all the time, when I finished the first draft, it was 619 pages.
Wow.
And my girlfriend said to me, you have written the Gutenberg Bible. You got to get it down to the King James.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then time is going by. And so the next thing I know, it's 13 years before the first edition. And then I've got a play and all of this. And so now here we're sitting at 20 years, and everyone is suddenly saying, Meghan Markle is going to be the first royal of color. And I'm like, wait, let's stop.
Yeah.
No, but thank God that at least she was in the picture, because it did shine the light very brightly on the fact that there was this woman seated next to George III as a queen consort, who was a woman of color, hiding that color, behind makeup, but nonetheless, a woman of color, and we should know that. So I wanted to infuse the novel with as much actual history as possible.
When we were filming Bridgerton it was the scene where Lady Danbury takes Daphne to her girls' night. It's a sort of scene of it's a women only drinking and gambling and carrying on scene, and we filmed it at Badminton House. Badminton House is an estate. They have the badminton horse trials, these international horse trials there. There's the Beaufort Hunt goes from there, and it's about 5 miles up the road from where I grew up. Because I grew up in the middle of the English countryside. There were 3 black people, me, my dad, and my brother.
Wow.
For about a 50-mile radius. So, and I was a typical sort of rural kid in weird ways. I can milk cows by hand. I went out with dairy farmers and pig farmers. I used to ride horses, all of that stuff. And we were obsessed with the badminton horse trials. We would watch it every year. We would build jumps in the garden and gallop around on our pretend horses and do all of that stuff. So to actually be filming somewhere where I had grown up and then go into this main room, and there is a huge picture of Queen Charlotte on one wall. Yes, my dear. And in another room, there's a huge picture of Queen Charlotte, painting of Queen Charlotte with her kids.
With her kids, okay. Which the main painting, which one? Was it the Sir Alan Ramsay? Was it the one that we know?
Yeah, it's the Ramsay one. Dang. I mean, and it was me, and the director for that block was a director called Ulrich Riley. His family are they're of West Indian heritage. I'm not sure which island. And I said to Ulrich, come and have a photo with me next to this painting. And I said, you know, I grew up out here in the 1960s. And if I had to know that just up the road from my house, when I wasn't being allowed in people's houses because we can't have that coloured girl in here, what would the neighbours say? To know that just up the road was the painting of a woman who looked like me, who was royal, and was just sitting there in that house would have been an enormous comfort and would have gave me a sense of belonging in that strange place that, you know, not all people by any stretch, but some people did not think I belonged in, you know. So for me, it's a very, the whole thing is very moving, and to just go, you know, we belong. We are allowed to belong. We do belong. It's factual. It's not
true. Because so much of our, I say this all the time, so much of our history and our contribution to world history has been expunged from the historical record by the, you know, the canonized press and the canonized historians who will tell you up and down, no, she was not a person of color. No, Pushkin was not a, trust me, 200 years from now, Barack Obama will be rendered as a white guy if things continue the way they have gone in the past.
You know, we were doing, I was with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and we did a production of Julius Caesar that was set in East Africa. I was playing Portia, and we were in Brooklyn, we were in Ohio, we did it all over Britain, and we did it in Moscow. This is a couple of years ago at the Makat Theatre, the arts theatre, which is Chekhov's theatre. Sorry, not Chekhov. Yeah, Chekhov's theatre, and Stanislavski's theatre, and it's quite near Pushkin Square.
Yes.
So yeah. So one night, the young guys in the company wanted to go clubbing because they're young guys and they have to go clubbing. So they went to this nightclub, and you know, they can hear hip hop coming through the doors, and they try to get in, and they're told by the bouncers on the door, no black people allowed, no blacks, and they're sent away. And then you go to Pushkin Square, and you know, I took a photograph of the statue on a long lens, and you want to go, hello, have you seen this
black man here?
Hello.
Right.
Square named after him. He is one of your great, you know, literary geniuses. No blacks. And you know, it's that sort of stuff where you want to go, man, come on now. Come on.
You know, I'm wondering for the two of you, with all that's happening right now, you do see that Black creatives are getting more attention, more space to share their perspective. But do you feel this is kind of a fleeting moment? is it something that signals a real change? I mean, where are we right now, given the focus that's happening on civil rights and anti-Blackness and what we have contributed?
I spoke to you earlier about peaks and valleys. You know, we as a group, Black folks as a group, have gone through, certainly film wise. You know, we've had Black exploitation period of the 1970s, and then suddenly everything went away. And then the 1980s with Spike Lee, you know, and Mario and people bringing, you know, and hip hop then ushered in a new era. So there's all we always come and go, but I think now that we are getting opportunities, as long as we, the creatives, keep things equal, so that we are learning. So projects are being created where we can learn something that will sustain us, as opposed to just doing one marginalized group of us. I mean, right now we are sort of in the, you know, the urban contemporary mode. Everyone's doing that. And to your credit, Adjoa, and that show, millions and millions of people are watching us in another way, where we are not, you know, generally we're sweeping the floors and carrying the tray. And in this, you know, and in that project, we are royalty. We are Black aristocrats. So as long as we can keep a balance there, I think we have the potential of staying, because also we are sort of controlling our narrative. Before, you know, you would watch projects. I mean, I was, you know, Roots sort of comes to mind, and I was in Roots, you know, the original Alex Haley Roots. But there were a lot of white writers behind the scenes who were responsible for that writing. The difference now, we are not only behind the scenes as directors and writers and in front of the camera as actors, we've got some studio executives. You know, we've got people who can actually pull the trigger on production. So now keep in mind, I'm a gal who thinks of the world as the glass is half filled. So yes. I would like to think that this is going to continue for some time to come, until the product proves to be no good. Now that's me. Adjoa, you may have another perspective, but that's me. I think this time it's going to last certainly a little longer than those other periods in our history.
I hope so. Here's the thing, and this may be different than it is in America. Over here, I've been talking about a couple of projects in this last year with central Black characters, where I've had to say, you know, you're not going to be able to do this with the writers you have at the moment because they're white. I'm not saying you can't have white writers, because I want to be able to write for white people and Chinese people and anybody I want to write about, but you cannot do this anymore. You have to have a creative team that reflects the demographic of the work you are making and the audiences you wish to speak to. But for me, before you even get there, because I can say that because I'm in the early stages of the conversation, but were I not at that point, you know, and if I not at that point, the matters I'm raising are still a surprise. Why is it? So my big thing is, it's all very well putting us in the shop window, but I want to be in the back office. I want to be ordering the stock and deciding what the displays are. So there's not enough back office in this country, and actually I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction to the consequences of George Floyd's murder, you know, and all the pre and subsequent murders, that is making people feel they need to blackwash their institutions. But if it's a wash that washes through and washes out, it's no good.
Then we go right back to the beginning.
It's Audre Lorde saying, you know, his master's house will not give up his master's power. You know, you're going to have to give up some power. You're going to have to.
Adjoa, I've been looking at this.
You know,
I've been making a list of who the Black writers are in the UK. I am very curious as to who's out there, who's trying to, to get the jobs in the UK. If there is a way that I can help facilitate some employment for Black writers, and also Black direct. I'm really frankly, I'm really searching for Black female UK directors. And so I would love to be able to put together some master lists, or perhaps there is one already where writers and directors of color have signed their names on, and how they can get how they can be gotten in touch with. I'm personally looking for that, because I have not this next piece that I'm doing. I have one behind it that also takes place in the UK. If people know where we are and we do really good work, then we get to continue to do that. That's always my whole thing is, let's get the opportunity and then continue to give an opportunity. So it's the Hawaiian monkeys. You get an opportunity and then you give an opportunity.
Absolutely, Tina. I always remember I came to London and did my first job sort of by accident. I was in a Black women's group in Bristol. We'd been to Greenham Common. We'd done all of that stuff. And there was a woman in my group called Deborah John Wilson, who was in the San Francisco Mean Troupe in the late 70s, early 80s. And then she came to the UK. And I was doing a law degree, and I joined this Black women's group. And at a certain point, I packed in my law degree. I didn't want to be, I was trying to be a good African daughter, but I did not want to do a law degree. I wanted to be an actor. That was like saying you wanted to be an astrophysicist. What was I thinking? Anyway, so I packed my law degree, and Deborah said, come and do my class. So I went and did her class, and then she got funded for a show that she'd written to do in London. And she said, you need to audition for my show. So I came up to London, auditioned, got the job, and that's how I started. Did that job, then didn't work for a year. Cleaned toilets, modeled for life drawing classes, did the whole thing. And then I started getting auditions because other Black actresses told me about auditions in which I would be in competition with them for the work. And that act of generosity has stayed with me always. And my thing is, the minute you get a toe in the door, you push the door a bit wider and let somebody else's toe in.
Thank you.
And we have to be our own network. So, whenever I'm on set, because the thing over here is, you may have actors of color in front of the camera, but is the grip or the gaffer or the focus puller or the DOP? So this is, and there are people there, men and women. But so every time I see a crew member of color, I'm like, hello, what's your name? Give me your contact details.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're like, hello, sloppy lady. But it's like, no, come on. And we just have to we have to be our own network. So,
yes,
like that ANC thing, each one teach one.
Each one teach. It's true. Well, you and I have a friend in common in Trevor Etienne.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I love Trevor. And Trevor will tell you, I said, Trevor, where are the Black folks in the UK? Who are the creatives? Where are the set designers? Where are you were talking about the grips and the gaffers, and I'm looking at who does hair and makeup. When I walk onto the set, I would like to see the United Nations, or the United Colors of Bennington. Yeah. I want to see women and men. I want to see us reflected everywhere. Not just the actors. And I agree with you. I'm seriously looking for that. So Trevor said, why don't you do what you generally do, Tino? So when you come over here, I'm going to send you a list. Invite everybody to one of those parties you give. I always find some restaurant. I get the back room, put tables together, and just say, hey, I do not know you guys, but come party with me. I want to get to know you. Mm-hmm. And let's see if we can do some business together. I would love to do that, but you have to be conscious of making sure that people who look like you get those opportunities.
Yeah, well,
they've been created for me. Again, teach one.
Yeah, you tell me when you're coming over, Tina, and I will get you the list.
Oh my God, that would be good. And then I'll give the party.
Excellent.
Can I ask you ladies, how did you keep that fighting spirit? I mean, what would you tell a younger actor, aspiring actress, filmmaker? How do you keep going when you are dealing with that kind of lack of presence, those kinds of closed minds? I mean, how did you keep the energy going to stay in this business?
I will tell you, I'm older than Adjoa. I started out, I had the first interracial relationship as an actress on daytime television on Days of Our Lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the Friday that the show aired, where my character and his character kissed, 5,000 letters poured into NBC calling me the kind of stuff they were calling my parents in the 40s. I mean, the N-word was my middle name. Mm-hmm. And it got to the place where the fan mail was so bad that I was, stepping out of my place, and how dare me, it was all of that I couldn't get through the filming. And so the executives started to say, don't give her fan mail before she shoots, because we could just go up there and go to the pigeonhole and get our mail and go. Don't give her anything until after she films. Let her get this mail and go home and cry and not Cameron do. We had to be choreographed in terms of how we held hands. It was the first time they had dealt with this. Mm-hmm. But I'm also grateful that you were talking about kicking open the door. Yeah, when you're the one kicking open the door, you get broken toes.
Exactly.
But you push it a little further and a little further, and successive generations get to just walk through it.
I know. It's I remember we had a comedian over here who was he's dead now. He must have been working in the 40s and 50s, and he played the working men's clubs in the north of England. That's a tough crowd up there. And he was called Charlie Williams. And a lot of Charlie Williams' comedy was, mocking himself and making the racialized jokes about himself before his audience did.
Yes.
He was tough. And I remember there was a moment in the 70s and 80s when there was a lot of Black consciousness raising happening here, and scorn was poured upon him. And all the other, the performers who'd been in all those comedies, which we would watch desperately because there was a blackface on telly, even if everybody was mocking that blackface. And scorn was poured on those performers. And I just wanted to say, you have no idea the courage. Because of them, mm-hmm. we don't have to do that, because they did it for us.
That's right.
And we just have to keep doing that. I directed in All Women of Colour, Richard II at Shakespeare's Globe.
Oh, I wish I'd seen it. I heard about it.
It's on YouTube. I put it up for free. I made a
bit,
and you can see it for free on YouTube. I just want it to be there because it's good, and I just want people to be able to have access to it. And I was amazed in 2018 at the pushback. Mm-hmm. And it just like, what? No, the choreographer is going to be a woman of color, and the fight director, and the voice coach, and the composer, and all the musicians, and the lighting designer, and the costume designer, and the set designer. It's like, why? Because we can.
Because we can.
It was a great production. We got fantastic reviews, and we didn't get the well done, brown ladies, really good Shakespeare. Well we got this is a thrilling new interpretation of this play for our time. Because my thing is, I did these things. I did cultural sharings, so people would come in and we had 3 days of what I call cultural sharings, and it's like, read the play, bring anything in that resonates with you. It can be a piece of fabric, a piece of music, a carving, a story, a film clip, whatever. And we sat in the room together before we started rehearsals, and everybody cried. Everybody cried at not having to be the only one in the room.
Wow.
So you could just come, and you didn't have to be a woman. You didn't have to be of Chinese heritage or Jamaican heritage. You could just come and be an actor. Come and be an actor and bring your God-given gifts to your craft into the space and just do your work. So, and for me, the thing was, we're going to do all these things. We're going to have the poster, the invitation to women's refuges and Gurdwaras and posters up in black neighborhoods and the whole thing. We're going to do the open invitation, but fundamentally the work has to be on point.
Yes.
Because you can't make all the noise and then not turn up with the goods. And it's all the usual things that our parents have said to us. We have to be twice as good as them.
That's right.
Mhm.
But I'm afraid we do.
That's true. I mean, you're talking about pushback that you got, what, 2018? Who is the young woman who was in, I can't think of the film she was in, which I saw, but she's playing Anne Boleyn now.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
And she's getting pushback today. I mean, now for the fact that they hired her. So when you ask Charisse about, how do you hang on? How do you not get up? How do you persevere? I would have to say, I'm in rarefied air that I get to stand on the shoulders of ancestors who went through quite a bit more than me. So I have got to stay in the game and keep my shoulders prepared for whoever is going to be behind me. So every day you wake up and things may not happen the way you want them to happen, but they're going to, because again, I'm the glass is half filled kind of gal. It's got to get better, because it should not go back to what it was. And it hasn't. So, I mean, you're opening up doors, Adjoa, all the time. I mean, your presence in Bridgerton, just who you bring to that, is going to inspire some other actress to say, wait a minute, I can be Juliet. I can be whoever. I can play any of these roles simply because I am here.
I just think, I can't imagine there's going to be a costume drama cast in the way they used to be anymore. I just think it's dull. It's old hat. It's over. Unless you're talking, about a small Icelandic community in the 1400s. But even there, I betcha
someone of color is there. That's true.
Right. I bet you they are. And I just think that, when a young guy across the road says to me, yeah, I've been watching that show you're doing. Yeah, I like it. When a young black guy says that, he's watching a costume drama.
Thank you.
Likes it. Why? Because he can buy in, because he's himself, and I think the reason we keep going is because I think about little me, and I think about all the little me's out there who need to have positive of their value and their existence and the fact that they are seen and heard, and I think that when we make that fundamental demand and we keep pushing it, we're not just doing it for our own communities, we are doing it, for every person who doesn't get seen and heard for whatever the reason. Maybe they're differently physically able, or their sexuality or their income or the caste system or whatever the hell it is, or they're a posh white boy who's been forced into banking who really should be doing embroidery because that's what he's really good at. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's right. Across the piece. But we can't go back, because there is no going back, because I'm a human being and human beings go forward. We're built to go forward.
That's very true. Right. Yesterday is in the past and tomorrow is where we're headed. That's very true. I heard an interview that it disturbed me. And it was Julian Fellows talking about Downton Abbey, because there were not a lot of people of color in that very successful series. And I heard the comment that, I couldn't just put Black people where they weren't, there weren't necessarily Black aristocrats or whatever. And here I'm on all of these projects where I know for a fact there were several Black aristocrats all during Jane Austen's time period and all of that. So I'm thinking, we do have to be the arbiters of change. We have to. So the writers have to write it. The singers have to sing those songs. The actors have to interpret that writing. We have to make sure that we create those models so that they can suddenly be taken for granted. Everybody will then start to have one or two Black people not necessarily carrying the tray in these period dramas.
Right.
Yep.
And that is the beauty of what you're currently doing, what you've done with this audiobook. I'm hoping what I get to do when I continue with the Charlotte story in the way that I'm doing it on HBO, we all get to go because we all think of ourselves as being important and fundamental to the storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this is going to continue longer than the last pops of Black what is it, the Black presence in film or television.
And do you know why I think as well? I don't know what it's like in the hot maelstrom of what's happened in the past year in terms of racial politics in America. I mean, because you have had a massive thing to push against, which is old Trumpy and his like. But over here, it's been so releasing, not just for artists. I was watching the cricket and there inevitably over here rain stopped play, and there were 3 people commentating. There was Michael Holding from he was a superb West Indian cricketer. There was a young woman called Ebony, and I should remember her surname and I don't, and she's a local girl and she played cricket for England's women of Caribbean heritage, and there was a guy called Nasser Hussain, and I think his family, I could be making this up now, but they're from the Middle East, and all of them, when rain stopped play, started talking about their experiences of racism in cricket.
Wow.
And none of them had ever spoken about this before in this way. And there was one white commentator, and you could just see him kind of ease back and give the floor. It was the most moving. They were broadcasting for Sky. It was one of the most moving hours of surprising, commentators, news sportscasters filling in because of the weather. And it just suddenly went into this arena. And it just seems to me that I have heard people from all walks of life, scientists, medical people, sports people, artists, creatives like us, of colour, all starting to go, do you know what? I'm done now. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. I'm not taking that anymore.
Right.
This is what I need to afford.
Right.
Lewis Hamilton, the motors car, the car, the racing car driver, all walks of life, people are just going, mm-mm. And then we had a whole load of things about food poverty in this country because the levels of food banks and everything that's been exposed by the pandemic.
Yes.
It's been a thing.
Yeah.
And then young Black footballers just taking the center stage and campaigning for free, food credit, financial credit stuff for single parent families through the holidays when they don't get it, because schools are shut and they don't get the free food. Then also just taking up all sorts of campaigns. Just sort of, it's like something's been released and people have stopped being anxious about, if I step out of line, I'm going to get smacked down and that's the end of my career. People have just gone, I don't care. I'm going to say it now.
Yeah.
And it's been so thrilling. I can't tell you. It's and I think you're right that in this moment there's a sense of people going, no, and
we can't accept that. That is an unacceptable answer. We have been here since the beginning of time. We're in every walk of society. Now we need to write about that. There's nothing unusual about there being Black aristocrats in England in any time period, by the way. We weren't all just, again, I keep saying we weren't always sweeping the floor and changing the mistress's dress. We weren't, yes, we did that, but some of us were the mistress.
Exactly. And Tina, what you're doing, because you're, we have a historian over here called David Olusoga.
Yes.
He needs to be top of your list. When we were doing Bridgerton, I got David in to just come and have a chat with some of the creatives on the show as well, and he does amazing work. But I think there's something really important about historians and people doing historical research that goes, this is empirical. This is not me doing hoogie boogie. This is empirically the case, and we are going to bring it into the light, and we are going to make it a solid piece of known history so that you can't refute it. And if you want to exclude us, it will be because that's what you choose to do. Julian Fellows, go and read a book.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what's so thrilling about what you're doing as well. As well as actually getting it out there, because you have the creative platform to do that. That to do that work and to excavate that stuff that has been buried is so necessary.
It has become a calling. It was the fallback. When your father says to you, "This is cute. You want to be in show business. You need to have a fallback position." I'm in high school, so he said, "You've got advanced placement history. So what do you think about being a history professor in case this show business thing doesn't work out?" Mm-hmm. And I finally was able to say to my dad, "Hey, look, I get to do this both. I get to be the history professor and be a dramatist and be in show business all at the same time." I agree. Those of us who do this work, it's very fulfilling. Trust me, I've gotten pushback. I'm told, "Oh, we don't want to do that," or "That didn't happen," or "That's not true." Yeah. And then I come with 40 pages of notes saying, "No, and this is where I got this. This is who sent this to me from the British Library. This is where I got this from the Windsor or Buckingham Archives. No, you can't say that it's not true." Mm-hmm. And then they go, "Well, then let's ease into it." And I love the fact that HBO said, "No, Tina, let's not ease into it. Do it. Do it." Yeah.
But because the other thing is, these big institutions, they're not altruistic. There's money to be made. Mm-hmm. The fact that a show like Bridgerton was such a big hit, that's money to Netflix. There's money to be made from these stories, and there's an appetite for it.
There is an appetite. 85 million for you guys. 85 million people worldwide for a costume drama is amazing. It's amazing. And I love and I'm just going to be honest, the part of what works about it and probably why we will be able to do some of the next two things that I am doing is because it is the perfect marriage of a British story and American storytelling. Yes. That marriage is actually, it's very interesting because we sort of tell stories a little differently. When you put that together, the entire world started to watch it. It was because first of all, I love costume drama. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching Masterpiece Theater, and when Stars was doing nothing but, historical, we're doing, Vikings and Outlander and all that, I'm glued, but I'm so starved to see myself. Mm-hmm. And now suddenly, since the world is 75% people of color, here comes a costume piece where you've got a third of the cast are people of color. So you gained all of that audience. And so you're right. There is money to be made, particularly when your audience looks more like you than anybody else. So
exactly.
Adjoa, I wanted to ask you, Lady Danbury, who was my favorite character, I think, in Bridgerton. You talked about how she had this instinct for survival. Yes. And I'm curious if you see any similarities between her and Charlotte Sophia.
Yes. We see Lady Danbury, as when she's older, and in Charlotte Sophia, we meet her in Tina's book. We meet her as she's growing up and growing through her life. And interestingly, we're doing Shonda's writing a sort of origin story for Charlotte and Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton. And I'm really interested in the Lady Danbury who comes to court, as a young woman. I'm really interested in how the missteps and the navigation that she needs to learn fast stands her in good stead. She's slightly older than Queen Charlotte, so I'm interested in what happens if you have a Lady Danbury already at court when a Queen Charlotte arrives. You know, I'm interested in what that could be. So what I love about Lady Danbury, and I suppose it's okay, well, there's several things for me about Lady Danbury. I celebrate my mother and my grandmother on my English side, and I celebrate my aunts and my grandmother on my Ghanaian side in Lady Danbury, because all of them were women who at various times have had a tricky life and have had to plough their own furrow and have their own courage and their own stamina and their own resources, but they have found a delight. They've found a way to take delight in their life and to find things that please them and follow them. All of them, when I think about them, my God, they are clothes junkies. They are stylish. They have got schwang, and you know, they will know that a hat like that is not as good as a hat like that. You know, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it may be a cheap hat, it may be one you've had to do up yourself, but you know how to wear that hat. And so I wanted to celebrate all those women, because I do think that women quite often do extraordinary jobs of making life better for those they love and care for and care about, and sometimes it's just for themselves. And so I wanted to celebrate that, and I wanted Lady Danbury to. She has a great appetite for life, and I think an appetite for life is what keeps people going when you think, why are you bothering? I mean, really? And it's like, no, come on, life is out there. And I love that about her, so I wanted to bring that. But also, you know, in order to enjoy your appetite, you have to stay in the game. You know, you have to work out the strategies that will get you through your life. And I could be speaking about, I bet you I could be speaking about any one of the three of us when I say that.
Oh, yes.
So, very true.
That's what I wanted to bring to Lady Danbury. So I think that Charlotte, you know, the way that you have manifested her, Tina, Charlotte, she learns to strategize and to work out, you know, that whole sequence of her learning the dance so that she can dance with Christian, that, you know, the strategizing that she has to employ to work out who her friends are, who's going to be safe, who isn't going to be safe, you know, how to handle George, all of it, you know, how to navigate that court, the hostility, how to navigate her mother, her sibling.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that mother. Oh my God, the mother. I mean, the fact that the using of the dance, interesting that you talked about the dancing, because that ended up turning into lessons in how to read for John, you know,
yes.
and a way for him to elevate himself, only for, you know, as we know what happens to him.
Yeah.
And then she gets to court and realizes that one of the ways to appeal to George is through chess playing. You know, this was written before Queen's Gambit, you know, in terms of Charlotte and the mastering of chess. But he learns what a great mind she has because of how she moves the pieces, and then she can slowly feed him with ideas that he may be willing to absorb, because he can understand that she's brilliant based on how she's doing that. So that's how that is. I see that as a couple of things in which Charlotte and Lady Danbury are similar.
Yeah, it's the strategy. I think, and you know, playing the game is literally playing the game for Charlotte in that instance, but it's that strategic way of deciding how you're going to place yourself in whatever circumstances you find most advantageously. You know, how do you keep your soul intact and progress through the world? It's and it's always fine margins, isn't it? And I you know, and put on top of all of that, being a woman in a world where you're still property.
I was just about to say, because
I
this
mean,
is pre-women's rights. This is even pre that big meeting in London, which didn't take place until 1840, where, you know, was the beginning of the suffragette movement. No, you still, and a man had the right to beat you as long as the stick he used wasn't larger than his thumb. But you know how much damage you can do with a stick that's this big, that is this thick?
Nick, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So,
I must tell you, I'm so grateful that you decided to talk with us today, and that we get a chance to sort of go back and forth with our experiences. I'm again grateful for the job you did on the audiobook. Adjoa, do you have a handle where people can find you on Twitter, or they can follow you
yes,
on Twitter?
you can follow me on Twitter. It's okay. I'm cassette generation, so my kids are like, "Mom."
Right.
So I'm just going to look at my phone now. Pause. La, la, la,
So for those who want to follow me, I'm at Tina Andrews.
Exactly. That's what I'm about to give you. Okay, good. You
on
can
Twitter.
do your,
And Charisse?
I'm at Charisse Jones on Twitter. So
Okay.
at CHARISSE Jones.
Okay, I found mine. I'm at Andoh. What do you call it when it's not a hyphen?
Underscore.
Okay. I'm at Ando_Adjoa. That's me on Twitter.
Well, I have had a marvelous time. This is terrific. I will see you. We'll have dinner next month. You and I have dinner next month, and then there'll be a party later. Thank you
Tina,
so much.
Can I just say thank you for Queen Charlotte, but for all the work that you're doing, for all the broadcasting that you've put out there, for your parties, for your tenacity, for your being the first interracial kiss on daytime television, for all those firsts that you are doing, and for all the door shoving open with all the broken toes that you have been doing for all of us over this period of, you know, decades.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much love. I'll see you next month. Thank you so much, Charisse, for taking out the time to do this with us. My
honor. I loved it. I'm a fan of you both, so this was great.
So we will all speak again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Much love. God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.